They laughed at the delivery guy, mocked him every chance they got, until the day he became their boss and handed them their termination letters. Tyler Matthews had worked as a delivery driver in downtown Phoenix for nearly a decade, navigating every narrow street and every service entrance with practiced ease. He knew which receptionists would sign for packages without making eye contact, and which ones pretended he wasn't even there. He accepted it as part of the job, dropping off parcels, getting a quick signature, and moving on before people could question why he was still doing this after so many years. At Whitmore and Klein, a high-end marketing firm known for its marble floors and towering glass windows, Tyler's presence was nothing more than a footnote in their day. He first showed up expecting it to be like any other stop. Hand over the box, collect a signature, leave. But he soon felt a current of dismissal that ran through the place. The receptionist would barely glance up from her screen. Office workers, dressed in sleek suits or fashionable outfits, looked past him as though he were part of the furniture. Over time, Tyler noticed the way they smirked when he walked by. At first, he told himself he was just being sensitive, that no one was actually laughing at him. But one afternoon, as he was placing a small parcel on the main reception desk, he overheard two employees talking. One was Ryan Caldwell, a senior account executive who loved flaunting expensive suits and a booming laugh. He joked to his colleague, "Imagine if the delivery guy ever tried to run this place." The other, a woman with stylish heels, giggled and added, "Please, he's probably better at stacking boxes than leading meetings." Their laughter echoed through the lobby. Tyler felt his chest tighten. He kept his expression neutral, finished handing over the package, and walked back out into the blazing Phoenix sun. In his van, he gripped the steering wheel, anger flaring for just a second, before morphing into something sharper. A realization that these people didn't see him as a person with potential. They saw a uniform, someone beneath notice. He had faced that kind of attitude before, but something about Whitmore and Klein got under his skin. He drove home to his modest apartment, the peeling paint on the walls and old carpeting reminding him that his life so far was all about practicality. He didn't have fancy furniture or the latest gadgets, just what he needed to get by. That evening, he sat in the dim light, phone in hand, calling his older brother Malcolm. Malcolm had an uncanny way of cutting right to the heart of the matter. "So, they laughed at you today, huh?" Malcolm said. "And you can't shake it off this time?" Tyler sighed. "Usually I don't care, but something about these people, they were so sure they were better than me. Like, I could never do anything else." Malcolm let out a soft chuckle. "Maybe it's time you remind them who you are." Tyler was silent for a few moments, thinking about how, for years, nobody had suspected what he was really capable of. Despite wearing a delivery uniform, he had a mind for business. He'd spent his teenage years flipping collectibles, turning small profits on limited release sneakers. Later, he taught himself about stocks, picking up shares here and there. He'd even partnered in a couple of small businesses, making sure to stay behind the scenes. He'd watch how owners ran their companies, learning from both successes and failures. Whitmore and Klein, from the outside, looked like a beacon of success. But Tyler had noticed the cracks. "They can't see beyond my uniform," he murmured into the phone. "But I've seen their financial reports. I know they're losing clients left and right. They're just too proud to admit it." Malcolm's voice was calm but encouraging. "Then show them. Use what you've learned, do what you do best, and show them you're more than some guy carrying boxes." Tyler took those words to heart. He spent the next several months doing what he had done best since he was a teenager, investigating and investing. Late at night, after finishing his shifts, he pored over spreadsheets and research about Whitmore and Klein. He discovered the firm had once been truly innovative, but now it was riding on past glories. Its debt was sky high, its leadership stuck in outdated thinking. Their biggest clients were slowly reducing budgets, moving accounts to competitors. It was only a matter of time before cracks turned into collapse. He was not alone in his findings. A shrewd investor named Anthony Wells had also taken note of Whitmore and Klein's precarious situation. Wells was the kind of investor who looked for businesses on the brink, either to rescue them if they had potential, or to take them over if the original owners were asleep at the wheel. When Tyler approached him with a plan to buy controlling interest in the company, Wells initially raised an eyebrow. You make deliveries for a living? Wells asked, not condescendingly, but clearly curious. Tyler shrugged. It's one of the things I do, sure, but I've also been studying businesses for years. I know how to spot a deal when I see one. Whitmore and Klein is exactly that. Wells wasn't the type to be swayed by appearances. He cared about numbers, and Tyler's numbers didn't lie. The more they talked, the more Wells realized Tyler had a solid understanding of how to fix the company and make it profitable again. It wasn't just talk. Tyler had enough of a track record with smaller deals to prove his abilities. Eventually, Wells agreed to back him. Getting from that initial agreement to owning a majority stake in Whitmore and Klein required precise steps. Tyler reached out to private investors and old shareholders who had lost faith in the firm's leadership. Some of them were more than happy to sell their shares to a serious buyer. They didn't care that Tyler wore a delivery uniform by day. They saw the sum he was willing to pay and recognized a decent exit strategy before the whole ship sank. Each share he bought gave him more influence over the future of Whitmore and Klein. He spent weeks buried in paperwork, late-night emails, and carefully worded offers to minority stakeholders. Whenever he showed up at the firm during the day carrying packages, nobody suspected a thing. They still teased him or ignored him, never realizing he was methodically becoming their boss. Finally, Tyler secured enough shares to call the shots. The day after the final documents were signed, he arranged a direct meeting with Richard Langford, the CEO, who had inherited his position through connections rather than skill. Langford agreed to see Tyler only because the email insisted it was urgent business, and because Tyler's name was on official paperwork now, not just a courier log. The meeting was short. Langford barely glanced up from his desk when Tyler entered. "Make it quick," he snapped. "I've got reports to finish." Tyler set a thick binder on the desk. "You should look at these first." Langford flipped open the binder, his brow furrowing as he read. Realizing these were legally binding documents that proved Tyler owned the majority stake in the company, Langford's face went pale. He skimmed faster, as if hoping to find a mistake. There was none. Tyler waited quietly. This has to be a joke." Langford's voice trembled with shock. Tyler simply shook his head. "I'm giving you until the end of the day to clear out your office." Langford sputtered. "You can't just—" "I can," Tyler said, keeping his tone even. "The shareholders agreed to sell. It's not personal, it's business. Though I'll admit, it is a bit satisfying after the way your employees have treated me." Langford wanted to argue, but the evidence was clear. Tyler Matthews was now in control, and there was no loophole to exploit. The once smug CEO slumped into his chair, knowing his time was up. Word spread fast. By noon, the entire building buzzed with rumors. Some people said it was impossible. Others insisted it had to be a prank. How could the delivery guy own the company? But when Tyler called for a meeting in the main conference room, nearly every employee packed in, from junior assistants to top-tier executives. They were all desperate for an explanation. Tyler stood at the front, wearing simple business attire, still not flashy, but a far cry from the uniform they were used to seeing. Silence fell as he began speaking. "As of this morning," he said, "I am the majority owner of Whitmore and Klein. If you think this is a scam or some wild rumor, I have the documents to prove it. You can check them for yourselves." He held up a folder thick with signed contracts and share transfers. A few employees exchanged nervous glances, while others tried to appear calm and unruffled. Near the back, Ryan Caldwell leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a sarcastic smile tugging at his lips. Tyler continued in a firm voice. "For years, I've walked these halls, making deliveries. Most of you never even noticed me. Some of you did, and you made sure I felt exactly what you thought of me." He let his eyes rest briefly on Ryan, whose confident smirk began to falter. Tyler went on, "I don't care about petty revenge. What I do care about is how this company has been run into the ground. You've lost key accounts. You've been spending money in ways that make no sense. And worst of all, there's an arrogant culture here that's kept you from adapting to a changing market." Nobody dared to interrupt. Even the ones who had looked down on Tyler now stood silent, because it was clear from his tone that he knew every weakness, every failing, and every missed opportunity. "I'm here to fix that," Tyler said. "Some of you might be relieved, others might be worried. Let me be plain. I'm not going to keep dead weight. If you've been here just because you think you're untouchable or that your job title alone keeps you safe, you might want to dust off your resume." A hush fell over the room. Fear flickered in some employees' eyes. Others, especially those who had quietly done their work under poor leadership, looked almost hopeful. Tyler drove his point home, saying, "Termination notices will go out by end of day. If you want to help rebuild this place, if you can bring real value, you'll have a seat at the table. Otherwise, you can leave." Ryan Caldwell, cheeks reddening, finally spoke up. "You really think you can run a firm like this just because you've got some money behind you?" Tyler met his gaze without flinching. "I think I've watched your department lose one of the biggest clients this company had. If you want to talk about ability, we can start there. I have the numbers if you'd like to see them." Ryan's mouth opened, but he had no clever comeback. He knew exactly which client Tyler was referring to, the one that had cut ties after months of mismanagement. Tyler turned back to the rest of the group. "Decide now if you're in or out. If you're in, prepare to work. If you're out, you can walk away." Nobody moved, but the tension was electric. Slowly, Tyler stepped away from the front of the room, letting the employees consider his words. He had said what needed to be said. The rest was up to them. Within hours, the building fell into a kind of controlled chaos. People whispered at their desks, eyes glued to their emails, waiting for news. Some openly packed up, resigned to the fact that they were no longer welcome. Others tried to show that they really were valuable and had been stifled under old leadership. Ryan Caldwell, seething with anger, announced he quit before any official notice could arrive. He stormed out, refusing to work under someone he'd once laughed at. Subscribe and let's get back to the story. Tyler settled into what had been Richard Langford's office, a large space with a polished wooden desk and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Phoenix. He took a moment to stand by the glass, gazing at the skyline. It was a surreal feeling. He remembered how, just a short while ago, he would drop off a delivery at the front desk and leave within minutes. Now he owned the entire operation. And yet, he felt no gloating pride. He realized that for him, buying Whitmore and Klein wasn't about humiliating the people who dismissed him. It was about the chance to build something better. He had watched them from the outside for years, noticing how this place had once been strong but had rotted from the inside out. As he looked out over the city, he thought about the employees who had real talent but were overshadowed by arrogance. He wanted them to stay. He wanted to give them a reason to feel proud of their work again. He wanted to prove that treating people with respect and focusing on real results, not just image, could turn Whitmore and Klein around. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Ellen, who had worked as Langford's assistant for years. She stepped in, looking uncertain. "Just wanted to see if you needed anything," she said quietly. Tyler turned to her. "Actually, I do. I need someone who knows how this place really runs, who can give me the honest truth about who's valuable and who's been faking it." Ellen hesitated. She'd always done her job well, but had never felt recognized. "I can do that," she said, a touch of relief in her voice. "Good," Tyler replied, "because we're about to bring this company back to life, and I can't do it alone." Ellen nodded and left, and Tyler returned to the window. The phones in the hallway kept ringing. Several employees were still huddled in whispered conversations, likely trying to decide whether to stay or go. The entire firm was on the brink of a major shift, and Tyler was calm, certain he could handle it. He remembered the day he'd overheard Ryan Caldwell laughing about the idea of a delivery guy running the place. He also recalled how it had lit a spark in him, the anger at their dismissive attitude, and the determination to show them how wrong they were. Standing in this plush office, he let out a slow breath. He had succeeded in showing them, but that wasn't where his ambitions ended. This was just the start. By the time the day ended, a stack of resignation letters and a list of terminations sat on Tyler's new desk. It was a messy process, but necessary. Some employees breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for a change in management. Others left in a fury, refusing to accept a world where a former delivery guy had turned the tables. Tyler accepted it all with the same calm focus. He had a job to do: save Whitmore and Klein from its own failing structure and rebuild it into something better. As he powered down his computer that night, he allowed himself one final moment of reflection. He had come a long way from simply dropping off packages. If anyone out there felt stuck, overlooked, or belittled, maybe hearing about Tyler's transformation would show them that every situation has potential hidden under the surface. Even a delivery route could be the path to something bigger if you had the right mindset and the drive to make it happen. Anyone who'd ever mocked him for being just a delivery guy would now have to adjust to the reality that Tyler Matthews was in charge. And for those who saw themselves in Tyler's journey, maybe they'd draw strength from the knowledge that it doesn't matter where you start. What matters is whether you're willing to put in the work, learn the game, and strike when the time is right. If this story resonates with anyone feeling underestimated, spread it around. Sometimes the person everyone dismisses is exactly the one who has the power to turn an entire company upside down, simply by taking ownership of what no one else bothered to fix. And once you're in control, you can reshape the future, just like Tyler Matthews did. Subscribe and check out my channel for more stories. Please subscribe.